So I built a secret room in every Ikea in the world and put something horrible in it, and I build it with code you build websites with. I also discovered an amazing open source library that gives you insane results with just 24 lines of HTML and no JavaScript, which will make your projects stand out. Hi here, Phil there. Long time no see. Sorry, I fell asleep on a motorboat. Everyone is building secret rooms these days. I have no idea why. So I thought I'd build one too, and ended up building hundreds of them in every Ikea in the world.
The result is so stupid, it would make living a country on a lawnmower feel like a smart move.
It all started like this. I went to the store to get a saw. Then I realized I was a web developer and came back. I had to build it entirely with code. But how the hell was I going to do that? My first thought was fraud. Trick people into thinking I build an actual physical secret room with code, but in fact build a website with a 3D room somewhere on it. But the thing was, I already tricked 2 kindergartners into giving me their toys this month. I couldn't lie anymore, so this time I had to do it honestly. And by kindergartners I mean people who work in the kindergarten, of course. No idea what to do with that leather whip now. I should probably give it back. Just like in these YouTube videos, I wanted the room to exist in a physical space, an apartment or a house, be discoverable by interacting with that physical space, and explorable within that physical space. But how the hell was I going to build that with HTML, CSS and JavaScript, the languages that I used for building websites? This is how. In the early 1600s, in Holland, a guy named Jan van der Heyden invented a garden hose. He then used this invention to successfully neutralize his mother-in-law. This has absolutely nothing to do with this video. 368 years later, in the United States, a guy named Ivan Sutherland invented something he called a head-mounted 3-dimensional display. The fundamental idea behind the 3-dimensional display is to present the user with a perspective image, which changes as he moves, Sutherland wrote, but thought now that right there would make a fine torture contraption. The local community knew him as Ivan the Terrible. Basically, Ivan built a device that created a 3D illusion by showing 2-dimensional images to the user that were changing based on the movements of the user's head. The user would practically wear 2 miniature TVs on her ears, like the ones your grandmother had, because in the 60s they only had those. And then the half-silvered mirrors, placed directly in front of the user's eyes, would reflect the images coming from these TVs, which resulted in the reflection being combined with the real world. This was the first ever augmented reality device. A lot of people lost their heads over it back then. But today you can experience augmented reality right in your phone. And that was exactly what I needed. I could build a room in 3D using realistic materials, models and lighting, put something unexpectedly stupid in it that rewards the discoverer with a feeling of outrage, and then hide hundreds of these rooms in public spaces across the world, making them discoverable by anyone. I had no idea how I was going to plant augmented reality markers around the world, but before I can even start thinking about that, there was one other huge problem. A rhinoceros! No. I wanted anyone anywhere in the world to be able to experience this experience by just going to a URL. I was not going to build a native app. But does augmented reality even work on web? And if it does, can I use 3D with realistic materials and realistic lighting in it? Steven Seagal. Unless you are running a car factory in Eastern Europe, if you're not sure if something would work, before going all in on it, first you test it. And I wanted to test it on Steven, so if something goes wrong, nobody would miss him. And the AR for the web existed, and Steven did pay his price for it, with his dignity. No, wait, what dignity? The first thing I found was this great little JavaScript library with an original name Ar.js. You didn't even need to write any JavaScript there, as it uses something called A-Frame, which is a framework that allows you to add 3D objects to a web page with just HTML. The only small problem was it didn't work. Turning images into markers felt like launching a Soviet nuclear submarine. And the main problem was that the model was misaligned and the position seemed to change depending on the screen size of the device. And no matter what I did, I couldn't seem to fix this. If your wife lost her feet to the cabbage harvester, don't spend ages trying to sew them back. This requires a lot of finesse, effort, experience and a lot of time. Just throw this one away and get a new wife. This is exactly what I did, and what a great decision this was. Just a couple of Google searches and I found the augmented reality library that worked, with only 24 lines of HTML. It had none of the problems with the alignment, and it even had its own online tool for turning any image into a marker that worked super fast. But there was another big problem. I needed a hole. Because how do you discover a secret room? There is always a hole.
Really?
I needed to make a hole in a real physical space and put a real size 3D secret room in it. How was I going to do that with HTML?
I wasn't.
In the core of mind.ar lies Three.js, currently one of the most popular and successful JavaScript libraries for 3D stuff on the web.
In fact, it is so popular and successful that its creators managed to tell anyone who is using anything older than 1 year old iOS to go f themselves without actually even telling them that. Which cost me a couple of good hours of my life, which I would rather spend watching Steven Seagal fight on a chair.
So mind.ar allows you to write your code entirely in Three.js, which means that anything Three.js can do, you can do in augmented reality.
Unless you went and f***ed yourself, that is.
When all the HTML mind.ar examples worked perfectly, the Three.js example didn't. I spent years trying to debug it. My children got old.
And then, suddenly, a groundbreaking discovery. I discovered that the entire Three.js website did not work on my phone.
Turns out Three.js quietly removed the script which made all the examples stop working on iOS versions older than 1 year old.
And with that fixed, I was finally able to make a hole.
I put the model of my room inside the box with a hole in it, and set this box to not have any color or material information, so it doesn't show up when rendered. But because the rendering engine knows that the box is still there and should be covering anything behind or inside it, it doesn't render anything behind or inside this box either. That's why the room is only visible through the hole in this invisible box.
And now that I had the hole, I was finally able to build my secret room.
You can be big, you can be little, you can be big, you can be a little, you can be strong, you can be a beetle, but I'm the only one that is belly button whistle. Wash it all day, wash it all night. Scrub, 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 subscribe. Wash it all day, wash it all night. Scrub, 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 subscribe. You can be fresh, you can be a pickle, you can be petrol, you can be a diesel, you can be a Cheeto, you can be a Pringle, but I'm the only one that is belly button whistles. Thank you.
After the room was ready, I was finally ready to hide my rooms around the world. And what's that place with rooms that has all the same pictures hanging on the walls all around the world? Exactly.
So I went through Ikea sites in different countries, chose some images that appear globally and some that are unique to each country, and turned them into augmented reality markers. And now you can go to the link in the description of this video, go to your local Ikea, find a secret room, and witness a grandmother being abused by Superman.
So this project was quite stupid, but also I love that it made me discover things like mind.ar. Actually, in fact, I think that this could be the future of web, especially with advancements in technologies like Apple Vision Pro and similar devices. And also it was quite fun to make, and I think fun projects like these could be a good addition to your online portfolio and will make you stand out from the crowd. Like for instance here, I build a clock that is a digital form of life. Check it out.